We can also talk about the hierarchical structure of morphemes, which are organized in highly patterned ways. So they have an obvious linear order, and they also have a layered structure. Let me show you what I mean. We think about untrue, and you think about the way in which untrue, that word untrue, was put together, and the order in which the morphemes were added and attached. We know that we started with true first because true was our root morpheme, and then we added un, not the other way around. So we did not start with un and then add true, right? So this tells us that there is a particular order in which we add morphemes on to complex words. Here's another example. Truthful, which actually has 3 morphemes, right? True, th, and then full, is made up like this. We start with true, then we add the th, and then the full. We don't go th, and then full, and then add true, right? So notice that the root morpheme is really where the structure starts. So let's look at the word untruthful and see how the morphemes add on to make up that word. So where do we start? Right? You should know that we start at true because that's the root morpheme, and this represents an adjective. What happens when we add th to true? We get a noun. And now at this point, are we going to add un to make it untruth, or are we going to add full to make it truthful? So we're going to make it truthful, right? Un is the last piece that is added on, which basically truthful is the adjective and untruthful is still an adjective, but now we have a negative connotation added onto it. Let's try another word. How about uncontrollably? So at this point I'll give you a second. Maybe you can jot this down on a paper nearby and try and diagram it out before I go over it with you. Okay, so let's go over it together. We start with what piece of the word, right? You have to ask yourself, what is the root morpheme of the word? So the root morpheme is control, which is a verb. And are we going to say uncontrol, or are we going to go with controllable? We go with controllable, so that makes it an adjective. And then we could start with uncontrollable, which would make more sense than controllably. So controllably isn't really a very often used word. And then we add uncontrol. Okay, let's go over this together. So we start with control because that is our root morpheme, right? That's the sort of the meat of the word where the meaning comes from. We know that that is a verb. We then decide to add able to make it an adjective, controllable. We then add the ly to make it an adverb, and then end with un, which is still an adverb but in the negative sense. So let's discuss some interesting questions about morphemes, and these questions will sort of test your understanding about morphemes in general. The first question is, are un and two variants of the same morpheme or two different morphemes? And so here you should be thinking about whether un and play the same role, and if that n difference between the two really makes a meaningful change. If you agree that they are actually the same morpheme but represent two variants, you would be right. Because if you look at the way that they're used in similar ways. It's just that un is used for words that begin with vowels, is used for words that begin with consonants. But their role and their meaning is the same. They're both used to introduce nouns. Okay, question number 2. Is it possible for complex words to be made up only of bound morphemes? Or in other words, words which can be further broken down but their parts cannot stand alone? So the answer to this is yes. If you think about words such as romance, merchant, sentiment, relax, before, and between, each of these words have parts that have historical connections to their underlying meaning. So, for example, merca means to trade in Latin. Roman means to write in Latin. Senti means to feel in Latin. And so these words actually represent complex words, but you can't really break down senti and have it be standing by itself. So these actually, the different parts of those words like merchant, romance, and sentiment represent complex words that are made up of only bound morphemes. Okay, and then the third question is er, as in the suffix, in these words variants of the same morphemes or different morphemes. So we have singer, oyster, baker, greater, potter, and louder. So take a moment, you can pause the video and try and figure out if they are the same or if they're different. Okay, so let's go over it. There are actually three different types of morphemes that are represented here. Singer and baker and potter fall into the same category because that er is a morpheme that adds that tells us the person who is doing the action, singing or baking or making pots. Oyster, on the other hand, is in its own category because you can't take off er from that word. It's actually a simple word, meaning the shell with the animal. And then greater and louder fall into its third individual category because those ers, they can be taken off, but their purpose is different, their meaning is different. They're used to increase if by comparison. Okay, so up until now we have learned several ways to describe morphemes, such as free and bound, prefix and suffix, and then the ways to describe the words with simple and complex. We're going to learn some other ways in which morphemes and words can be categorized. So in any language, words can be divided into two categories: functional and lexical words. So if we think about functional words, these represent things like pronouns, conjunctions, and determiners. Another way to think about this category includes the words that make up the glue in a sentence, right? They are the words that signal the relationship between the other types of words in the sentence. This is really different to lexical words. Lexical words really contain the meaning of the sentence, right? These are most probably the words that you can picture in your mind. Notice that it's really difficult to picture pronouns, conjunctions, and determiners in your mind. But it's relatively easy to imagine a chair, or running, or happiness, or sadness. And so those types of words represent lexical words. So the reason why we're going over different word categories is because morphemes are morphemes attached to lexical words. Okay, so for the purposes of morphology, we are going to be focusing on the lexical category. Notice that morphemes never attach to these types of words. Okay, you're never going to find a morpheme that attaches to a pronoun, a conjunction, or a determiner. Okay, so within that lexical category, we find two different types of morphemes: derivational and inflectional. Let's go over derivational first. So derivational morphemes are morphemes that attach to words to form new types of words. Okay, so let me give you an example. We start with the word health, right, which is a noun, and we add the suffix full, which makes it an adjective, and we add the suffix ly to make it an adverb. So notice how each of those morphemes change the part of speech of the word. And this is really the purpose of derivational morphemes. They change the part of speech of the word that they are attaching to. Here are some examples. Usually, any noun that has full attached to it becomes an adjective. Same thing with eyes, right? Any noun that adds eyes becomes a verb. Let me give you some example. So we just saw healthful. We also have doubtful is another example. A noun changing to a verb would be empath or energy, right? So the noun energy, and then you add eyes, becomes energize, and it's a verb. Adjective, so happy, and then you add the adverb ly, becomes happily an adverb. We looked at things like sing and bake. With an er becomes a noun because it's a person. The adjective we've seen less, and then lesson becomes the verb. And then for example, enjoy would be the verb, and then you add ment becomes the noun enjoyment. There are many other different patterns. I just wanted to show you some so that you're pretty clear about what derivational morphemes represent. Also keep in mind that derivational morphemes are bound morphemes, and these bound morphemes attach to both free and bound morphemes. So in the case of health, we see that that th attaches to heal. We know that heal is a free morpheme, right? Can stand by itself. So see that th, it's a bound morpheme that is attaching to a free morpheme. On the other hand, we can still attach bound morphemes onto that. So health becomes healthful, attaching full, a bound morpheme, to another bound morpheme, th. Okay, so to test out your knowledge and see if you can identify derivational morphemes, I'm going to have you do Activity 2. Activity 2 can be found in Unit 3, where you are watching this video. Also, you can click on the screen and it will provide you with the worksheet which you can use to complete Activity 2. So what I would like you to do is identify how many derivational morphemes in this paragraph. The first thing I want you to do is write down any words that you see that carry a derivational morpheme, and then underline the morpheme in that word and describe how it changes the part of speech of that word. Okay. Here is the paragraph. So let's do the first one together. The first word, happily, I notice that happily contains a derivational morpheme. So I'm going to write down the word happily, and then I'm going to underline the ly piece, because I know that adding that ly to the adjective happy transformed this word into the adverb happily. So that is what you would start to write on your worksheet. Go through the rest of the paragraph and identify and write down your words, underline the morpheme, and we'll go over it together in a second. Okay, let's go over it. So happily is the first word that we did together. We also see excitement, right? Excite is a verb changed to a noun with the derivational morpheme suffix ment. We also see salty, salt being a noun changed to an adjective with the suffix y. Gently is also, gentle is an adjective. Adding ly makes it an adverb. Excitedly, here we have excited with the ly added to it, which makes it an adverb. So excited being the adjective, and excitedly being the adverb. Notice that when you're going to describe derivational morphemes in your linguistic project, you want to talk about the ly being a derivational suffix that is added on to the root word, or other bound morphemes. We have tropical, so it went from tropic, which is an adjective, to tropical. Okay, let's do it together. we went over the first word happily. We also see excitement, which goes from a verb to a noun. Mint being your derivational suffix. Salty from noun to adjective. Gently going from adjective to adverb. Excitedly, adjective to adverb. Tropical, tropic being a noun, with the al derivational suffix making it an adjective. Lightly, light being the adjective, ly making it an adverb. Warmth, warm being the adjective, th making it a noun. Slowly, adjective to adverb. Rugged, noun to adjective. Same thing. Faded, it is a verb to an adjective. Darkness, we had adjective to noun. And then quietly, adjective to adverb. And that was it. That was all the words with derivational morphemes. Hopefully you got them all.